Yep. Here we go. One time. In fine evening, people show style. Here we go. Now we're in an orchestra. Orchestra. There once was a woman who lived on the other side of town. Oh, no, that's true. Where she would make Rosa. Anyone that comes around. Jujuraya. Yeah. Her plastic world, little fights, darkness, chains, and pearls. Well, man, we invite my party and pull up here. We get to it, you know what I mean? Her arms will bite you like a serpent of earth. Yeah. Cause she no kiss for no one, has no love under the sun. She's like the very child flows on. That's it. Don't play like a clown, she will weaken it down. She's like yo, you don't like that tune. But like the music is just pure. No kiss for no one, has no love under the sun. She's like the very child flows on. Don't play like a clown, she will weaken it down. Very child flows on. Alright. Wagwan peoples, I gotta say, welcome to the Evening People Show. If this is your first time on the show, welcome. On this show, we interview folks, we meet old friends, new friends. We have a bag of laughs. People can laugh, you see? Yeah, tell them. My guest tonight is me, actually. I don't have one of my esteemed guests with me tonight because I want us to catch up on a couple of things that we might have missed in some of the previous shows. We typically read poetry here on the show. The poetry usually comes from my book called Love Life Confrontation Expressions, Selections from the Chronicles of a Black Man. It's a book of poetry. It's available in Jamaica, Fontana Pharmacies, in Montego Bay, Mandeville, and both Kingston locations, Waterloo and Barbican. And it's available on Amazon.com. All right. Now, tonight we have a special edition of the Evening People Show. Like I said, I don't have one of my esteemed guests joining me today, but I'm going to review a few of the shows from some of my esteemed guests. Now, for the ladies, I'm afraid tonight I'm actually going to review a few of the shows done by some of the male guests I've had on the show thus far. Now, before I even get any further, there's a question I want to put out there, and I'm going to revisit this question a couple times throughout the show based on the content I intend to cover. The question I'm going to throw out there to you, and feel free to put what you think in the comments, is can or should your partner, your significant other, be your everything? Okay, let that sink in. Can or should your significant other or partner be your everything? Let me know what you think. Put the comments on there. I'll address them as they come in. Garrett Irvin, bless up yourself. I'm actually going to review some of the things you had on your show, Mr. Garrett Irvin. Like I said, today I'm going to review some of the shows and talk about some of the guests I had on there. You, Mr. Irvin, is one of them. The other two are Noel Cunningham and Alfred Thomas. No, I'm gonna. Noel Cunningham is actually gonna be my guest next Saturday. We have a super special show planned for you guys. If you don't know, Noel recently opened a restaurant in Toronto, Canada, and we're actually gonna jump on the show right in the kitchen of the restaurant and check out what Noel has going on there. So yeah, next week we have an exciting show lined up for you guys. So make sure you don't miss it. All right, so we're going to start off with Mr. Cunningham. Omar Tomlinson says it. All right, Omar, let's do that before we go any further. Omar says it's not possible and shouldn't be expected. That is in relation to the question that I said that we're going to be talking about a little bit today. And the question is, can or should your partner be your everything? Omar says, not possible. Let me put your comment on here, Omar. He says it's not possible and it shouldn't be expected. Okay, that's definitely one way of looking at it. But what about, in today's days when there's so much issues with, extramarital relationship or extra relationship, um, you know, wouldn't it be safer to have your significant other be your everything? That way, it kind of minimize the necessity to find something somewhere else if you already possess everything from your significant other. Just playing devil's advocate here, Mr. Tomlinson. All right, we're going to talk about Mr. Noel Cunningham. Noel came on the show on December 2nd. He was on the show. Um, and so a few of the things we talked about while he was on the show was coming up in Jamaica with a love for the culinary arts. Now, like I said, he's a chef, he's the owner of a restaurant. But while we were on the show, we got to talking about how people develop. How does a chef become a chef? You don't just wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm a chef. I'm going to open a restaurant and cook food. It typically doesn't go like that. If you're from Jamaica and you figured out that that is what you wanted to do from early, you're going to do home economics. Now, if you were coming up in Jamaica, when I was coming up in Jamaica, home economics is not something that boys do. Home economics is actually something that boys get a whole bunch of harassment for doing, right? So how do you then break that? How do you get past that issue of how do I go from being a boy loving culinary to a chef amidst everything that comes in between? They would have all kinds of names for a boy. I don't think there was any boy in home economics throughout my high school years. And that was 7 years, 5 years, first to fifth form, and then sixth form for 2 years. I don't think any boy did culinary or did home economics, as they call it. When we were at Michael Teachers College, there were a few of them. My good friend, Mr. Grant, is one of them. I think Grant was the only only man in that class. I don't think there were any other men in there. So how do you get past that? What do you tell your son? What do you tell your nephew? What do you tell a young man, a student, or someone who wants to do culinary, who wants to become a chef, who knows that's what they want to do, but the settings that they're growing up in is not conducive to that? What do you tell them? And Noel mentioned that it was hard for him coming up. The thing that he had going for him is that he knew from an early age that culinary, being a chef, is what he wanted to do. He said he'd watch a whole bunch of HGTV and, watch the people that were on there, and based on what they were doing, he just knew, and he had an affinity for it. So he knew that's what he wanted to do. What do I have here? Let's see. Mr. Tomlinson says, you did home economics at Manchester up to third form. I think we all had to do some. I felt like I did it at some point. Well, I remember being in the class down there. I think it was like for lack of a better word, an elective. And we really just go down and go hang out. I don't know that we did anything in there. I can't even remember turning on a pot or boiling the water in there. But I think I had a semester where I did that too. It was either that or something else. And I did that by default because I didn't go sign up for either one. But okay, wait a second here, Mr. Tomlinson. You said you did it at the Michael? Really? I did not know that. I did not know that at all. Well, that's great, Mr. Tomlinson. That's actually great that you've done it. And when you were on the show, we discovered that you were a man of many talents. We never got around to cooking. We got around to playing musical instruments and several other outreach things that you're involved in. But cooking, kudos to you, my sir. Um, but for a young man coming up in Jamaica, and I want us to make a deliberate effort to reach out and talk to these individuals when we come across them. Make sure we are taking the time to make them understand that these are legitimate and potentially productive career paths, and we can nurture them. We have to give them the steps that they're needed. Just like if they say they want to become a this or that we perceive as more masculine roles, we need to continue to nurture them, whatever avenue they are in or whatever avenue they want to explore, as long as it is something that can come to fruition. And like we said, doing culinary, becoming a chef has to start somewhere. Um, Now, we also mentioned Noel's cookbook that he has out, and again, it's somewhere in the house. In the first few pages of the book, he has something on there says, "If I can make it, you can make it." He was referring to the recipes in the book, of course, but this is really an approach that we can run with. If I can make it, you can make it. If a little country boy from Jamaica can do culinary, and just because of his love of cooking and so on, he can develop that and nurture that into where he is now a chef in a major city, in a major country. You could follow it. If he can do it, you can do it too. No extra guidance, no extra support, just willpower and seeking out what a passion and sticking with it until it became now what he wants. And next week, I can't wait to have him on the show next week when we go check out when we go and check out the restaurant in Toronto and see what's going on over there. Greetings, Miss Bosch, New York in the house, um, and Jamaica in the house times two. Bless up. All right. Now, Noel read Flashback when he was on, um, and what do you do when you are in the wrong is one of the points that came up in his show. What do you do when you are in the wrong? Um, Based on his analysis of the poem, he was saying that the poem was written almost like, there's a part in it that referenced an apology where somebody had done something wrong and they were trying to do something to make up for it. So I pose a question again. What do you do when you are in the wrong? You are in a relationship, whatever kind, however deep. You are wrong, you know you're wrong. What do you do? What is an acceptable means of breaking the ice? What are better strategies to employ to get you out of the doghouse, so to speak? Um, what works, what doesn't work? Now Noel is a chef, and I'm sure if he's ever in the doghouse, he go cook somebody a meal or they're probably their special dish. You know what I mean? But what do you do if you find yourself in the doghouse? How do you get out of the doghouse? What do you do when you're in the doghouse? What are things that you can do? Me personally, obviously, I write poetry when I'm in the doghouse, and I write some real good poetry when I'm in the doghouse, coming a wine at the doghouse. What do you do? I have written poems, several poems that have gotten friends out of the doghouse as well. And whatever it is that you do, though, when you find yourself in a doghouse type situation, if the only question you want to know is the person worth it? And if it's somebody who you're married with, then you're not supposed to ask if they're worth it because you should have already crossed that threshold. If it's somebody that you're involved with, you want to ask yourself, I think, is it worth it? And once you conclude that it is worth it, then you need to step up and go do what is necessary, um, to get yourself back into their good graces. Because if they're worth it, and it's worth it, and if you're in it, you might as well be in it to win it. Which brings me back before I move on to the question I posed earlier in the show. And like I said, I would be revisiting this question throughout. The question is, can and should your partner or significant other be your everything? Can or should your significant other or partner be your everything?
Omar Thomason commented on that, and he said it is not possible and it shouldn't be expected. Let me know what you think, if that's a thing or it's just rubbish. All right. Okay. Another show. Let me see if I covered. Yes. Another show or another guest I had on the show was Mr. Alfred Thomas. Now, Alfred was on the show on March 25th. A very accomplished young man, Myconian as well. He's a principal of Brownstone High in Jamaica, and he's held several other positions throughout the education system over the past 20 odd years. Now, from his show, I'd like us to visit, just like in the case of Noel when we visited coming up in Jamaica doing home economics. For Alfred, I want to look at coming up in Jamaica doing metal work, technical drawing, and that those kind of skill sets. Okay, again, back in my day in high school, technical drawing, metal work, woodwork were looked down upon. They were not perceived as by anyone really, apart from the few who knew what could come after. But most of the persons there were looked down on it, and I believe a stigma, and stigma is going to come up again when I'm talking about Mr. Thomas. But I think stigma has a lot to do with it. It's just that we and the way our education system was introduced to us, we were, for lack of a better word, we were skewed to one side, or our opinions were skewed to one side, where we felt like we were supposed to take whatever opinions we were being given and run with them as is and not question them. So when they told us that chemistry, physics, and biology and maths are the things that we're supposed to aspire to, then these are the things that we aspire to. And when they told us that doing it only done speaking the technical drawing and woodwork and all these things, I want to do farming, I want to turn farmer and all these things. We took it. We took it wholesale and ran with it. And persons that did those things, we looked down on them because we felt like they did it because they were not as smart as we were. And Mr. Thomas, who is now, like I said, the principal of Brownstone and has a lot of places that he's going to go to. He's a very driven individual, very down to earth individual as well. But he realized from early on that these are the things that this is something that he wanted to do. This is something he was good at. He embraced it. He went to the Michael Teachers College and did it. He came out and taught it, and he's now, like I said, a principal. Again, we need to make a deliberate attempt when we're talking to our young men to introduce these things to them, or when these things come up, woodwork, technical drawing, metal work, we need to make them understand that these are legitimate avenues that they can use to become successful. Instead of getting them in the mindset to go out there and do maths, chemistry, and physics or whatever, to where they can go out and get a good job. No, enough of this get a good job business, right? How about you and your friend will love metal work or 2-3 really putting it together, learn the metal work, learn the woodwork, learn the technical drawing, and when you come out, want to see if you can start up a company, hire some employees, and or even do the work to get going. And once you get the momentum, you get some other people on and start a trade school. You know what I mean? And make sure say there is integrity in the work that you do. So when you set deadlines and when you give people estimates and so on, you get the work done on time, and you get the work done within or close enough to the estimate that you give initially. How about that approach? So rather than coming out and getting a good job working for somebody, I become the employer and employ somebody. And if you have your head on straight, you can leave from whatever high school or secondary school. If you do it well, you can get into UTech and these places that you can get whatever certifications are necessary to come out and get jobs doing these things, become architects and so on after the fact, once you put in the extra work to get there. But these, again, I say, are legitimate avenues of success for young boys and young men. And I believe a lot of the times the reason why there seems to be a disparity between success of male and female is because, like I said, in the school, the learning and the things that are emphasized are conducive to female and conducive to the way females learn. And the things that are, because trust me, at Manchester High School back in the day, down at the metal work department, they call it down in the dungeon. And it looked like dungeon. And down the dated big time and not new, never down there at all. The only thing you might find down there one T square. That's it. Right? Everything else is very dated. The place is not upkept. I don't know how it looked now. I hope it looks better. But it gave you saw just right how the place looked, how the administration felt about that area, or how they felt about that subject matter. And the people that do it, in my opinion, that's how they felt about the people that do it. Because if you valued them more, you would have placed more into those areas, right? So we need to, if we're still there, consciously make a deliberate step away from the mindset that I don't speak to TD and woodwork or metalwork, right? We need to make a conscious effort to educate our children, educate our young men, nurture them. When you see them gravitate toward things, and provide them with what they need to get to it, help them to get to it so that they can come out and become business owners, because houses are being built every day, businesses are being built every day, roads are being built every day, right? You need windows, you need everything. And somebody has to do the work. And when you have the certifications, it will help you with the pay. When you go to school and get the formal learning, you will understand the business aspect of it, and so you can come out and be successful. All right. So yes, you can just go out and learn a trade. That's one way to do it as well. But when you actually go through the formal education part of it, that is how you can become the boss for yourself. Because then you'll understand it, and then whoever you approach, you can show the accreditation that you have to help you get to where you're trying to get to. I see a comment here. Mitch Bosha is saying it. It is possible. All right, hold on, Miss Bosha. Seeing that you're addressing my running question that I have, I'll touch that in a minute. I'll put it up so folks can read it. Yes. So from another thing that came up in the show with Mr. Thomas was, I asked him about his, and this is where stigma come back again. I asked him about his noticeable accomplishments that he's made as a principal. And the first one he listed, he said it was an accomplishment for the school. And he said that he felt like he has changed the stigma that is attached to the school, right? Apparently the school nickname is Little Iraq. And no good thing was said about the school, even when he himself attended, he said many months ago. And he felt like since he's been there as a principal, the stigma attached to the school has been changed, which brings us to the stigma we were talking about before surrounding woodwork, metalwork, which brings us to making a change. How do you make a change? How do you make a change? Why would you want to make a change? Is it not just easier to fall in line with what everybody else is thinking? How do you make a change? In the example being given here by Mr. Thomas, he went into a school that he was familiar with. He said he didn't have to start from the ground up, but he's based on the things that he started inculcating in the school, in the teachers, in the habits of everyone. It changed. And when the NEI came in to do their inspection, the school got a better grade, a better rating than they had gotten in the past years. So the NEI come in and say, yes, you're legit. Your school itself can get a feel that they're moving forward. And here you are, you have changed the stigma that is attached to a school. And I remember when he made the comment, and I was saying, this is a significant accomplishment because stigmas are hard to change. There's all these, stereotypes and stuff. No, so them say, this, them are people are this, them are people are that. I hard something to change. That's not easy to just get up and change the way everybody looks at something, right? And but he said he was successful in accomplishing that. One of the things that he referenced and that I'm going to give you today, he said, do not fill someone else's shoes Leave your own footprints. He said it in relation to him getting the role of principal and somebody saying to him that he has some really big shoes to fill. And I said, no, don't go about somebody else. I guess heard that and said, no, don't go about trying to fill somebody else's shoes. Leave your own footprints. Meaning, rather than you trying to live up to or trying to be like someone else, how about you figure out how to make this work for you? I remember when I became the manager of the night shift at my job, for the first time, I felt myself becoming the previous managers, adopting their temperament, doing the things the way I saw them do it, but it wasn't conducive with my personality and who I am. So I was like, how am I going to harness my own energy, who I am, and apply it to this job? And there was only one way to do it, was to do it. And that's exactly what I did. I did not allow having the position to change me. I applied myself to the position. And after a while, the whole perception of management had changed, because it's not somebody that, there were just certain things that the management team did at the time that made everyone look at them in a particular way. And when I took the helm, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to continue what I saw being done, because I didn't like it. I'm going to do what I think should be done my way and see how that works. And I got a much better result. I'm still getting a much better result. All right. So that was Alfred Thomas. His takeaways about growing up in Jamaica, doing technical drawing and the industrial arts subjects is that stick with it. It can be productive. It can get you where you want to go. My thing for you is, let us make sure that when our children, when our boys, when our females express interest into these subjects, nurture them, encourage them, challenge the school that they're going to if the school is not providing for those areas like they can and should, to make sure that when the child leaves, they have a solid background in these things, because these are lucrative, especially in third world countries. These are primary functions. They are lucrative avenues that a child can take to better themselves. So we need to nurture it. All right. And that was Mr. Alfred Thomas. So I'm going to revisit the question. We have a question that we're going to be chatting about in and out as the show progresses. The question is, should your partner be your everything? Can or should your partner be your everything? I believe that's what Miss Bocha was addressing. She's saying it is impossible for one partner to be their everything. While it may be good and well for one, it can be draining for the other and may be viewed as obsessive behavior. In my opinion, based on my experience, she's saying one person cannot be somebody's everything. But the like I said about Mr. Tomlinson's comment, in your comment here, you are inferring or concluding that there's some one-sidedness about it, where you said it can be draining for the other person. What if this is exactly what the other person wants? What if it's a mutual thing where both people want to be the other person's everything? And this is a commitment that they made to themselves, that I'm going to be your everything. I don't need no cell phone. I don't need no social media. All I need is you. And I want to wake up to you every day. I want to spend every available time together. And I want to be your everything. What's wrong with two people feeling that way about each other and feeling like that's the way they want to explore it? All right. Ms. Bocha goes on to say, okay, this is relation to what I was saying here now. Says it is easier to leave footprints than trying to fill another person's footprint. Another person's shoe. I concur. I concur. Especially if you want to be successful. The easiest way for you to do, or the easiest thing for you to do, or the easiest way for you to be is what comes to you naturally. Naturally, I'm a troublemaker. I'm a comedian. I laugh, me like laugh. I don't like comedies, but I like laugh. Right? And it's like, because of that, if I have to be in a position where I'm just supposed to sit, I was a class clown in high school and college. I get in so much detention in a high school. I hope my parents or family are not watching because they don't know about this. Because who wants to just sit down and be bored? Nobody have time for that. If it's not exciting, nobody with it. So wherever you, saying all that to say, whatever situation you're in, if it requires something else, you have to find some way to bend it to your will. You have to find some way to bend it to what works for you. Because if not, you're gonna be on the struggle bus. You're gonna be trying to be something that you're not. You're gonna be trying to fill shoes that aren't yours. Mr. Irving is saying gender classification and stereotyping can cause people to become stagnated in their pursuit of the possibilities and opportunities out there. The pandemic has birthed entrepreneurship in these areas. Very well said, Rev. And you're 100% correct. When we put ourselves in boxes, guess what? We stay in boxes because we put ourselves in it. Why do that? Open up yourself to all possibilities. Open up yourself to what can be. Challenge yourself to be more than the people around you. Challenge yourself to be more than you think you can be. And like he said, the pandemic has opened up a lot of things. Yeah, I concur, because maybe I would have been doing book tours, but this is my book tour now. Here I get people from other cities, they join me. I'm technically, God knows how long book tour now. And a lot of people have discovered many ways. I was in a school in Spanish Town week before. I was in a school in Spanish Town, sitting right here in a school in Spanish Town, talking to a group of boys and trying to motivate them, to go out there and do more. A couple months before that, I was in North Carolina. For the North Carolina one, I had to, it was during work hours, so I actually brought my banner and brought my laptop and set it up in one of the conference rooms. And there I was in North Carolina in a classroom. And there's several other avenues of things that I know persons, and I won't call no name, who are teaching in multiple countries at the same time from a third country. And they're teaching classes in 2 different countries because everything is being done online. Nobody dared to explore these avenues prior to the pandemic and prior to COVID, but here we are. Embrace change. Do not put yourself in a box and allow yourself to stagnate, because this is what will happen should you put yourself in that box. Now, and Mr. Irving said he agrees with Ms. Bosha's comment on footprints. All right. We're moving on up like George and Wheezy. It's going to be a quick show today. Before I move on, I'm going to reiterate the question that we have been addressing throughout the show. And the question is, can or should your partner be your everything? Can or should your partner be your everything? Feel free to drop a comment as to what you think about that. Now, one of the guests that I want to look at, he's been on the show twice. He's none other than Reverend Gareth Irving. Reverend Gareth Irving is a man of many words when he needs to be. He's a man of few words when he needs to be. He's an all-round comedian and great, great, great person. Now I'm going to address his show a different way. He read Happily Married. He read a poem called Happily Married. It's a poem I gave him and said, Rev, I want you to read this one. I want us to talk about this one. Happily Married is not published yet. And it's a poem that, like you said, the title, like the people that were back me up last week on the show, it's a poem that the title does not really reflect what the content of the poem speaks about. The poem is called Happily Married, but the content of it does not really describe a happy marriage. It describes a marriage that was happy or had happiness, but is currently going through a phase where the happiness is being questioned. One of the things that came out during the talk was how outside influences affect relationship, right? How other things influence a relationship, how other things influence a marriage. We talked about gaming, We talk about habits. We talk about other outside influences like social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and we tie that into substituted emotions. Now, what the good Rev said was using outside sources to subsidize, not substitute for what your significant other should provide. I pose a question to him as to what the influence of these what's the impact of these outside influences on a relationship. And he was saying, you know, they can, and I think they can negatively influence a relationship because a person can use it as a crutch. So when you're having a bad day, and say potentially you reach out to, and here's how I'm going to walk you through a scenario how innocent this can come out. You're having a bad day, you reach out to your significant other via text or call to talk about your bad day, but because of where they were and what they were doing at the time, they weren't able to take the call. They weren't able to either take the call or facilitate the conversation, right? So you ended the call with your significant other, but you felt away. You felt away because you felt like they brushed you off, right? You have your WhatsApp chat group, you have your people on social media. You go in your WhatsApp chat group, you start read whatever comments are there. You shoot back a couple messages. Messages start rolling. You messages. You hinted at your bad day. People start jumping and say, oh, this, oh, that, and everything. And next thing you know, you actually feel better. Your friends in your WhatsApp group helped you get over the bad day you were having. Now, the spouse comes home, whichever one, male or female, and innocently enough, they're in the doghouse without even knowing it. Because when you called them earlier in that day, they were not able to take the call or did not respond the way you needed them to respond in that moment, innocently. And because you now had that situation resolved by a WhatsApp chat group and some friends, you don't need them for that anymore. Now, fast forward 3 days later, when that happened the next 3 days, and now you feel like, say, okay, you probably don't need them at all. And now you are using that WhatsApp chat group or whatever outside source as a substitute. Or you're using it, yes, you're using it to substitute for the emotion that you should be getting from your significant other, rather than talking with said significant other and talk or mentioning to them that, you know, when I called earlier on and you sounded this particular way, I felt this way about it, what was going on. And then give them a chance to explain themselves, and then you said whatever you wanted to say, instead of drawing a conclusion as to what was going on, moving forward and finding something else to substitute for the emotion that you really should be getting from your significant other. And I know somebody out there got going to hear this and say, well, brother, you talk, whatever they are, mad. Miss Louise, blessings in the place, my dear. Greetings. The Evening People show is here, and the fans are here. Yeah, so Miss Louise, I'm gonna reread a question that we're visiting, as well as what we're talking about in the show. We have a roving question that we're talking about. We have like a side hustle. That's the minor. We're majoring in something else, and that's the minor. The question is, can or should your partner be your everything? Can or should your partner be your everything? If you see the comments, Omar Tomlinson had commented, Reverend Garrett Irving had commented, Katie Abocha had commented on that. And we are reviewing a few shows. We talked about the show with Noel Cunningham. We talked about the show with Alfred Thomas. We are talking about the show with Reverend Garrett Irving. We're talking about using or how persons use social media or outside influences to substitute for the emotions that they should be getting from their significant other, and how damaging that can be to a relationship. I just walked you through scenario where something was said innocently to start, but the outcome of it was that because of the substituted emotion or emotional support from an outside source, it pretty much put the your significant other in the wrong, even though they did nothing wrong. So, how should we view outside forces? What part should they play, if any, in a relationship? Now, like I said, Reverend Garrett Irvin, in his wisdom, said that using outside sources to subsidize, not substitute, for what you should get from your significant other is the way to go. I was advocating that the issue, it becomes an issue when you use those outside forces to substitute. Because here's the bottom line: people are people. Nobody no like feel unwanted. Nobody no like feel like them a beg nobody nothing. Nobody no like feel like their feelings are not being considered or are not viewed as being as important. Nobody likes stuff like that. And no, they especially don't like it from their significant other. And if in that moment when that occurs, like I say now, a lot of these things come about innocently enough. Have you ever gotten a phone call from somebody exactly when you wanted a phone call from somebody? Not necessarily that person, but whatever was going on, you feel like, say, oh my, we could have talked to somebody right now and bring the phone ring right then. And it's somebody we talk to almost like they know exactly what you want to talk about and just have a great conversation. And then at another time, you just don't want to talk to nobody. The same person probably call again, and all of a sudden the conversation is different. That's it. That talks to our emotional stability. That talks to how emotions affect mood. That talks to how emotion affect needs, right? Um, and because of that, it becomes really easy for outside forces to play a part in subsidizing emotion that we really should be getting from our significant others. And whether it's work schedule or sleep schedule or whatever gets in the way, and we innocently enough start off subsidizing with something else, but before long, the subsidy becomes a substitute. And we don't want the subsidies to become a substitute, because that's when issues sit in, because we start thinking that we are better off or can do without our significant other in light of the substitute, when the substitute really is not that, right? I'll address your comment here in a second, Louise. That brings me to this brings me to or reminded me of a poem I have written called 20%. Unpublished. I think it made the draft for the next book. It's called 20%. And 20% talks about someone in a relationship, but the relationship is lacking 20%. And it's almost like they're tormented by this 20% until the point where the 20%, there's a line in there that said the 20% seems to be worth its weight in gold. So it's almost like that 20% has now overshadowed the 80%. And that substitute or subsidy that we've been talking about can present itself that way. It can present itself as being worth its weight in gold, because it is that thing that you are missing. And I'm sure persons out there have convinced themselves that this is what they need, this is what they want, jump ship, and when they realize they only have 20%, and now they're missing 80%, because they allowed that 20% to get into their brains to the point where they started negating and neglecting the 80% that they do have. Let's see what Miss Louise is saying. She's saying absolutely not, and I'm guessing this is in reference to our rolling question: can or should your significant other be your everything? She's absolutely not. We need so many different types of relationships. Example, my best friend for girl talk and just liming, but definitely my husband for intimacy, money matters, etc. What else do we have here? She's saying, on the other hand, I do not agree with subsidizing or substituting emotions. We should be sharing with each other. All right, but here's the thing, Miss Louise. First Lady. What what happened with this is Like I said, I don't think it starts off deliberate. I don't think it starts off deliberate. I think it is something that you stumble into because I don't know if you were watching when I mentioned you calling the significant other or texting the significant other at a particular time, and based on what they were doing or whatever was going on with them, the response that they gave was not what you needed to hear at the time. You just reach out to somebody else, and I know your name, First Lady. I'm just saying. Um, that's how she said Louise is my name. Right? When can see the comment, be sure. Okay, yes, Dad. We know your name there. All right. Let me see what else you say before I make my point. On the other hand, okay, same point. All right. But what I was saying, it starts off innocent, and just without realizing it, you are in a position where it's like talking to someone. You ever have somebody where, like I said, you just feel to talk to somebody, whatever is going on with your day. You just feel to talk to somebody, and all of a sudden, somebody call and only just have one long, long conversation. And then for the next day, the next time, if they call again, you're just not up to talking, and you just don't talk. And like I'm saying, that just did show you how emotions affect, how we present ourselves. All right. But there's one more thing I want to put out there from Garrett Irvin's show. He said, if you are not prepared to put in the work, don't put in the application. If you are not prepared to put in the work, do not put in the application. And what he was referencing is how, he himself, because of some show called Bridgerton. I haven't watched it. I know there was a buzz about it. But he said he wanted to write a poem to his wife, and he sit down in a mixing lab and mix up something real good for her and thing, and he got the desired result. But then the wife had to check him and say, yo, so what I mean? Why only special occasion this have to happen? Obviously, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's something you used to do, but you stop. You know what I mean? And the Rev was saying, you have to be prepared for putting the work to maintain your relationships. Think about this. Think about this. Think about whatever you do for work. Think about how much time you spend doing deliberate work for work. And your company, you don't own it, but you spend hours and hours a week. A lot of us come home with work laptop, come to work from full laptop. A lot of us work from home. A lot of us talk a lot about work while at home. A lot of us, because we're salaried, work a whole heap of hours on the books and off the books. And all of that is deliberate action geared toward a desired result, right? To the point where when our significant others want to talk to us, spend time with us, lie with us, whatever, we know they're on it, we're tired, we want to sleep, we're not up to it, we stress out because of work, right? Now, put that in the scale if you have a minute and balance it. And see if you balance or if you no balance, right? To the point where your significant others are feeling left out because of your work. And too many times, I think, we allow this to become a thing, and the thing that we should put, because you have to ask yourself, what is valued more to you? Yes, the job pay the bills, yes, the job do that, but if you take sick today, nobody from your work or come in your yard come look for you or take care of you. And if they come one time, then gonna come back 2, 3, 4 times, them all the day, night, midnight. Okay. So how is it that the person that's gonna do that for you is the person that gets the end of the stick? How or why? How the person that you go in front of a pastor or a JP or a judge and say you're going to take unto yourself and make you laugh or wedded, whatever, and dedicate the rest of your life to have and to hold and all these things, but that you do not take the same deliberate approach to making them happy or to fulfilling the needs that they have, right? And you even get frustrated and upset if they say or do something to take away from you being, if they come and say, I work too much, of X. If they say they want to spend too much time, why they I work so much, of X? Which don't make no sense. You understand? Because you're like I said, if you put those two things on the scale, the work, the home, you have it. If you can't find that balance, you're gonna have a problem. Let's see what Miss Louise is agreeing with here. She says, yes, I agree. But please note that the other partner needs to make themselves emotionally available. But here's what I'm saying, though. Here's what I'm saying, and that's a very good point. You're saying the other person have to make themselves emotionally available. So what we're saying is then we just want to be loved on our terms. We just want to be supported by our significant other on our terms. You call them at a bad time. They were having a bad day themselves. They didn't want to project their bad day onto you. And because of that, they didn't take the call, or they took the call and cut it short because they were not trying to project. Yes, they should be emotionally available, and they typically are emotionally available. The point I guess I'm making here is that sometimes in that instant when they are not, and a subsidy presents itself, sometimes that opens the door for that subsidy to become a substitute. And with the millions of interactions that we have per week, it's not really hard. And a lot of us out there have drawn lines in the sand and just decided, you know what? Me don't need them to do this, and this again. Me don't need this kind of support from them again. We can actually just get that from them. When we get this from a girlfriend them, like Louise said, our girlfriend them for chat about girl stuff, you get that from them, and you have your WhatsApp chat group where you get that from, and all together that form the whole of the emotional stability that you need, and you just pretty much cut out your significant other out of the parts them where you feel say you don't need them no more because you find a substitute or a subsidy. No, persons can feel stressed out at times. This is normal, but they must recall and return to the conversation and remind their significant other that they care. I agree, that is what should be done. But is that done? Is that done enough? Is that done majority of the times? Is that really in one of the fleeting things that make relationships suffer right now? You know what I mean? And in any state, it's so funny. It's so funny. We talked about in one of the previous shows, I think it was when Garrett Irvin was on, and Marlon Henry came on, and he mentioned something about in Jamaica. You have to, if you want to file for divorce, like you have to wait for like a year, and then you have to go back, like you have to check in a year, and they say you come back in a year time, and then I think that's what he said. I think I'm getting it right. I'm not sure, but I checked it out here in Orlando, and here in Florida. And if you file for divorce here, they tell you it takes 30 days, but it actually takes 10 days, because the first 20 days they do nothing with your file at all. They just put it down and wait for you to come and say you change your mind, and then they just give it back to you. No harm, no foul. And then if after 20 days you don't show up and say, okay, I want back the file, then they file it, and then it takes 10 days for you to actually pick up it. So it's a 10-day process, but they tell you it's a 30-day process, just in case you change your mind and cry cree and nobody want to play that game there again. Yeah. But yeah, Louise, you and your significant other, I think, and mind you, I don't think there's a secret formula for any of this. I don't think there's a secret formula for any of this. If I were to advocate what makes successful relationships successful, it would be two whole people who understand themselves and know what they want, finding each other. Why would I say that? Because I don't think somebody who is a half a person, emotionally or financially or any other way, is really equipped to identify what they want. It's kind of like a hungry man having a deep philosophical conversation. Or it's simple. It's simple things, It's simple. All right. You ever hear the saying, say you shouldn't go grocery shopping when you're hungry? Why they say you shouldn't go grocery shopping when you're hungry? Because you're going to take up all these things you don't want, and when you reach home, you're going to wonder why the hell you buy all of them something. Because you know why you were hungry while you were grocery shopping. And because you're hungry, the fact that you're hungry makes you buy more things, especially if you're not shopping from a list, right? This is the way emotions affect people. Now, if you are saying that to say, if you are suffering from some issue, some daddy issue, mommy issue, ex issue, rebounding, and all these things, it's that much unlikely for you to find a lifelong partner in that mental state that you are in, because you are not even looking through the lens clearly. You understand? You're looking through a lens that has whatever issue you have smeared all over the lens, so you can't see clearly. So something where you think look like a particular thing, that's not actually what it is in real life, and you can't identify it. As far as you're concerned, that is what it is, but your perspective is skewed. The place from which you're coming from is where the issue is. So to the best of your opinion, and to the best of your knowledge at the time, this is a right decision and a good decision to make, but it is not, because the lens that you're looking through are blurred, just like you see. They're blurred lens. You can't see. No, right? So, and a lot of times people enter into a relationship, and then when they when they finally clean off the lens and look, they say, regular jama wagwan yourself. And then the issues start, because they find themselves in a situation where they really should never have been in the first place, but it's because of where they were when they made that decision. They made the best decision they could have made coming from the place that they were, but the place that they were is not a place that you can make objective decisions from, right? I think you had a comment on here. Let's see. It says, definitely not done enough, hence many relationships struggle with communications and intimacy. True. And I think that's what it is because I see a lot of self-love things that have come on social media one time, and I'm all for it if that's what people need to help find themselves. But I think one of the most important things in the success of a relationship is you understanding who you are, what you want, and what truly makes you happy. If you identify those things, and you truly identify those things, then you can go to find somebody, and you don't have to take no foolishness from nobody way. But you see, when people have daddy issues, mommy issues, baby daddy drama, not go on for them, they're hungry, all of these things, when they try to find people in a these state, you can get lucky now, mind you. You can get lucky because the person might not be in the same state and they find you as well, and it can work. But a whole heap of time, it not going to work. It not going to work because the place you're coming from, a place that is flawed. The place you're coming from has an issue, and you're going to have the same issue attempting to go in the direction that you're going. All right, folks, that is the ball game, believe it or not. Thanks for joining today. We looked at a few shows here. We looked at Reverend Garrett Irvin. We looked at Alfred Thomas. We looked at Noel Cunningham, who, like I said, is going to be my guest next week, coming live from his restaurant in Toronto. And thanks for joining the Evening People show. I hope you learned something. Today I was just trying to, highlight some of the points that have come up throughout the show that I think were worth mentioning again. All right? And I hope you learned something. And if you did, share it to somebody so they can learn something too. And if you have not yet, for whatever reason, check out the YouTube channel, like and subscribe and all these things. Until next time, take care of yourself, man. Bless.